ongeveer 95 melkkoeien gaan zo meteen naar buiten. Dus het gaat een spektakel worden. Ja.
Je weet nooit wat de beesten gaan doen. Ze komen nu voor het eerst buiten, het zonlicht. En ja, dus afwachten.
Het is de vrijheid, de frisse lucht, ja, het comfort. Daar worden we blij van, zeggen ze dan. Ja.
We gaan vandaag sinds een lange periode weer, sinds eind oktober, weer voor de eerste keer naar buiten. Nou, dan zijn ze helemaal dol in de kop. Vorige week deed ik per ongeluk de deur al open en toen begon ze allemaal te loeien al het voorjaar in de kop.
Would definitely be like attached to another cow, like where she was physically touching the other cow as she was moving, and we figure that's how she trained herself as to what she was doing. If she doesn't have a cow right there with her, she'll extend her neck as far as she can, and she'll use the tip of her nose to anything that's, you know, at head level, so like a gate or moving up to the parlor, she'll use her nose to figure out where she's going. Everything below that, she's pretty entertaining. We have alley scrapers here that run underneath the whole time. She hears the alley scraper start, and all of a sudden you'll see her start dancing and shuffling her feet because she's trying to figure out where that alley scraper is and how close it is to being underneath her. She's kind of earned her keep here, and since she's earned her keep, she's kind of become a favorite. You sympathize with her because she runs into gates every once in a while. That's how she got the nickname Ping Pong. Because it helps Ping to hear things, we all tend to talk more around her to kind of let her know where we're located and everything else. But you can get within, you know, this close to her and she won't even realize you're there until you say something or make a noise. So it kind of gives us this, you know, silly extra closeness with Ping, and so she's developed herself as a favorite cow here, I think. And she does awesome. She gets up to the parlor, she milks, she's great, but during this research study we also weigh cows, so she has to leave her pen and go the opposite direction, which can get a little overwhelming for her. Usually we stick her with another cow and there's 3 or 4 of us weighing cows, so you're able to keep her moving. But yeah, she just goes with the flow and sticks her neck out to kind of know where she's supposed to be going, and she's just
As part of our extension efforts over the past few years, we've had the opportunity to see different types as parts of field days and demonstrations, and we just want to share very quickly here a few differences in some of the types of hoop buildings that we've seen. This is actually one that was from Washington County in eastern Iowa that shows the wooden bunk construction. in a typical hoop building. Sean, do you have anything else you want to say about this one?
Yeah, this was an earlier version. I don't know if you'd even find one like this with the single pipe arches close together, probably 4-foot spacing between those pipes. Most of the companies now switch to trussed arches and put them a lot farther apart.
This is another one in Story County, a little bit larger building with the steel hoop constructions. There's several of this. We'll ask Sean to comment on this one as well in terms of its construction and engineering. This is one that also has the drover's alley or the cattle alley in the back to help facilitate cattle movement.
And I think they added a kind of a lean-to on the back side of this hoop to get the roof out over that drover's alley. Kind of an interesting design.
Again, another one. This is in Floyd County, and I think this is your slide, Sean.
Yeah, I don't remember why I put it in there. Just longer than some of them are. A fairly long,
400 feet.
Narrow building. Yeah. And a shot from outside that building. Because the building was so long, they put gates in the middle of the feed bunk so they didn't have to travel the whole 400 foot to get out of the building when they were taking bedding in and bringing manure cattle out.
This is a different facility, correct? So this is the facility with 3 different hoop buildings side by side. Kind of an interesting combination of the way these are put together.
Now, the center building in this case has a feed alley running right down the middle of the building, so 2 sets of feed bunk in there. You look at that and say there's not possibly enough floor space in there. They've got all 3 buildings connected together with alleys, so the cattle can eat in either the center building or one of the 2 side buildings. The side buildings don't have feed bunk on both sides, just on one side of the building. Interesting note about this one, though, is because the area in between the buildings where the buildings are connected is open to the cattle, this actually isn't a confinement building by Iowa rules. This is an open feedlot with sheds. So it falls under different environmental regulations because of that open pen space between the buildings.
And this is another building, hoop building in Story County, where basically this becomes an open lot with shelter, much like the Iowa system, as Robbie talked about. This is an open dirt lot where the hoop building is simply used as a typical building for shelter for the cattle.
As cattle feeding has grown in North Dakota, we are seeing new investment in feeding facilities and renovations for expansion and compliance. Open lots with runoff containment ponds predominate, but there has been some confinement hoop barns put in use. Advantages are the ability to locate in environmentally sensitive or space-limited farmsteads to provide better wind protection, snow protection, summer shade, high animal performance, and greater ease in handling cattle. This relatively new barn is 300 feet long by 42 feet wide, divided with a 12-foot feeding pad and a fence-lined bunk, leaving a 30-foot resting area. An eave covers the bunk with the barn divided midway with a watering pad and fountains, resulting in 2 feeding pens with 150 head capacity each, allowing 1 foot of bunk and 42 square feet per calf. It's constructed with cement pony walls, I-beam supports, truss pipe rafters, and covered with a tarp with an open ridge and a roll-up side curtain. Similar structures are available with square post and plank construction in widths from 36 to 50 feet and lengths up to 500 feet. Manuring bedding management is critical. The feeding alley is scraped weekly or as weather allows. Bedding is blown in with a bale processor or unrolled in pens frequently to keep dry. The resting area is typically cleaned between feeding groups. Dependent on location, preparation, construction materials, design, and labor, costs can vary from less than $400 an animal space to over double that. Reported cattle performance and health has been good. Often initial experience with a first hoop barn leads to expansion with additional barns in the future.
Hi, my name is Lisa Peterson, Extension Beef Quality Assurance Specialist with North Dakota State University's Extension Service. Today I'm going to talk with you about how you can implement good, sound beef quality assurance practices into your backgrounding operations. Backgrounding operations is very similar to the one that you're seeing here today. Today we are working with a set of calves that have been weaned for about a month. They've been on feed. They need to be revaccinated, they need to be boosted. And so the first thing that we need to do when handling cattle is remember to handle them nice and quiet. Feed yards often report that the toughest thing that they have is getting cattle out of the pen. And so we'll try to show today how to get this set of calves, a small set of calves, out of a pen quietly and easily. The first thing we have to remember when handling cattle are there are some rules or some good care and handling practices and behavior principles that we should follow. The first of these is that cattle want to see you, and cattle also want to go around you, and cattle will also want to be with and will follow other cattle. And so we should use these to help us better handle our cattle while remembering that cattle can only think of one thing at one time. In that regards, they're very similar to humans. Some general handling practices is that if we move against cattle, they'll typically walk away. However, if we move up towards the head of cattle, they'll typically stop. So we'll try to move this set of cattle out of this holding pen into an alley as they prepare to be boosted or revaccinated. Now we have this set of calves started to move. It's always said that you should count the calves out of the pen so that they don't turn back like this calf here. Here at this facility, we're getting ready to load these calves into a crowding tub and then move them through a single file alley facility into a chute system. One of the things that we need to talk about with facilities is that they don't need to be expensive, they don't need to be fancy, they just need to be safe and work well for your operation. At this operation, they have a crowding tub and then a rounded single file alley system that moves into a set of chutes. At this particular operation, this works well for them. They have it so that handles very easily calves, like yearling type cattle, cows, and then older bulls. We'll try to move these calves into this tub system. One of the things that we need to talk about with both bud boxes and crowding tubs is a major mistake that occurs, and the reason why cattle often don't work well in these situations is that these tubs and crowding tubs and bud boxes are often overcrowded. This tub, the owner tells me, works best to load about 6 head of calves in. He says that when members of this operation try to overload it, put 10, 12 calves in, it gets so tight the cattle can't move and see the opening into the single file alley. So we'll try to put about 6 or 8 calves into this tub and see how they work. themselves up to move into this single file alley system. An important animal handling rule is that if you typically walk against the point of balance in cattle, they'll move forward. That's typically about their eye or their ear. So you need to walk clear wide and then walk back up against them to keep them moving forward. We now have our calf moved into our hydraulic chute. He is ready to be vaccinated, poured, or treated, whatever we would need to do with him. This brings an ideal time to talk about maintenance and pressure of hydraulic chutes. It is important that our hydraulic chutes maintain an ideal pressure, one that is not too high, one that is not too low, for cattle and workers' safety. Today's hydraulic chutes come from the manufacturer with ideal pressure set. While they maintain this ideal pressure better than the older models of hydraulic chutes, it is still important that we check these pressures occasionally prior to working animals. In review, we have talked about some beef quality assurance practices that can make cattle handling easier, more efficient, and safer on your operations. Producers should handle cattle quietly and easily using sound beef quality assurance practices. Those include 4 basic cattle behavior principles. First, cattle want to see you. Second, cattle want to go around you. Third, cattle want to be with and will go with other cattle. And finally, cattle, like humans, can only think of one thing at a time. Next, remember to assure worker and livestock safety. Be sure the pressure on your hydraulic chute is set at the ideal level identified by the chute's manufacturer. And the best way to become better at handling and working cattle is to practice often. For more information on sound and safe cattle handling and cattle facility design, contact Lisa Peterson, the North Dakota State University Extension Beef Quality Assurance Specialist, or your local NDSU County Extension Agent. The North Dakota Beef Quality Assurance Program is jointly funded by the NDSU Extension Service and the North Dakota Beef Commission.